No, I think Kamala Harris is very, very clear-eyed about the challenges that China poses. Um, she's going to call out, Russia and North Korea. They belong in a different category. And we don't do any trade with Russia or North Korea. For all of Xi's faults, we also have China as a major trading partner. And so we have to manage that relationship. We have to acknowledge the challenges that they face, but also how we are intertwined with them economically. And so we can't be rash about what we do, which is, pretty much what, Trump did with that trade war.
大家好，我是范琪斐，
嗨，我是路易莎莎，
欢迎收看《匪夷所思》。
匪夷所思
好，那今天阿姨想知道，其实我们是要谈美国大选啦，哈。那其实今天早上呢，就进行了一个真的是历史性的辩论，就是贺锦丽对上川普，这是第一次，也是唯一的一次。后面没有了哦，就只有这一次啊。那大家如果对于这个辩论有兴趣的话，其实今天早上今天中午啦，应该这样讲。我跟绿莎莎还有敏迪还有观测站的可心我们4个人有一起讨论，就是我们看了这个辩论以后的心得。如果有兴趣的话，大家可以去看一下这样子。那今天呢，我们其实请到的，我们还是谈美国大选哈。那但是我们今天请到的来宾是美国的民主党的党代表，全国党代表陈介飞。那这里有个小故事跟大家讲一下好了。其实他的代表这个组织就叫 Taiwanese American for Harris，OK， 那就是在美台人支持贺锦丽的一个组织啦哈。那说实在，他们其实蛮早就跟我联络了。OK， 那时候叫做 Taiwanese American for Biden， 然后我就兴趣非常不高，后来变成 Harris 以后，我兴趣突然就大增。OK，那。
原因是什么？
原因真的不是说我多讨厌拜登啦，哈，就我只是觉得他选不上而已。可是
这很现实主义耶。
对，然后呢？可是我是真的觉得我们对于贺锦丽的了解实在太少，真的问题太多了。然后尤其他现在因为选战已经进入，直接我们知道这个人的时候，他已经进入选战的最后的那个 crunch hour， 就是那个非常紧张的时候，所以。对于他的外交政策，其实真的 cover 的非常的少，很少人知道他怎么想。
他的这个选举的这个竞选期间是有史以来美国史上总统选举最短的一个竞选，就是他从开始，然后到开始要写政策，他写他的政策，然后开始去巡回，开始到各地去做造势，包含给这个全国民主党全国党代表大会进行确认的时间，都是史上最短的。
所以我们现在想透过陈介飞他在这个全国党代表大会，其实应该是比我们多一点接触嘛。好，要看看他了解的贺锦丽是一个什么样的人。好，那所以路易莎莎，我觉得你先把陈介飞的简历跟大家讲一下。
在大家前面讲到，就陈介飞J Chen， 他除了是这个党代表以外，他之前其实也代表民主党去参选这个加州第45选区的这个众议员的这个选举。那当然，他后来是因为据他本人所说，他受到这个抹红的政策，他被抹成是这个中共同路人，所以他后来没有选上。那他其实他是台裔的第二代。那其实在当地是有经营一个小企业，那同时他也是美军的退役军官。那所以他在民主党，他还在民主党这个组织里面，他目前是这个 Taiwanese American for Harris 里面的其中一个，我们说这个 co-chair。所
以我觉得我要强调就真的这是一个民主党内部的声音OK。然后所以呢，我们想要从他的这个角度来看，比如说对中政策贺锦丽是不是像传言中那么亲中？
其实。贺锦丽的政策是相对来说是非常模糊而且不确定的。那另外一件让范姐非常担心的事情是，其实贺锦丽在那个 DNC 就是他们确认提名那个全国党代表大会的时候，他几乎不讲中国，然后讲了独裁者的时候，其实也没有讲到习近平的名字。那这件事情就让范姐跟大家就会觉得，那他是不是就像他传闻的民主党是不是又是真的是一个非常亲中政党？我们是不是又回到那个老路过去了？
对，然后所以。当然，外交政策我觉得是说实在，因为选战现在目前的状况，你要谈外交政策实在有点困难了因为你一定是要讲美国选民最关心的东西嘛。那美国选民最关心的什么呢？就是经济议题。OK， 所以我也想透过陈介飞来了解一下贺锦丽对经济上的看法到底是什么。
好，那我最后补充一个，就是我们知道这个 J Chen 他其实是台裔的第二代嘛。那他其实我们前面讲到，他说 Taiwanese American for Harris， 这其实是一个在民主党里面官方被 被认可的一个组织。那其实他身为一个台湾人，然后在民主党内部要去推动台湾相关议题的时候，大家都知道，民主党过去在奥巴马时代，或者在这更早以前的克林顿时代，其实是台湾议题是比较相对被放在相对比较边缘的位置。那目前在这个大潮流趋势之下，他想要重新推动台湾议题往前靠到民主党前面，在外交政策上有一席之地的时候，这件事情是不是很困难？
好，那在我们进行就是我们真正访谈之前呢，还是提醒大家，我们募资呢不但已经开始，而且我们其实已经开始推出很多限定内容了啊。前阵子我们也跟可心还有敏迪，我们也有做了一个 podcast， 这里都上线了，所以请大家赶快去参加募资啊，赶快来支持我们，
帮助大家更了解、看懂这个11月6号这场大戏。
OK， 好，那我们接下来就来看看陈介飞怎么说吧。First of all, Jay, please say hi to our audience in Taiwan.
嘿，大家好，我是陈介飞，很高兴有这个机会，谢谢范姐给我这个机会，谈一谈我们的政治。
Okay, Jay, so now we will switch to the English, okay? So let's talk about DNC. You went to the DNC, right? And so tell us what the mood is like.
Yeah, so the mood at the DNC was, it was ecstatic, it was very hopeful, and it was very joyful. And yeah, it was just so different from 2 months ago when after the debate performance of Biden, everyone was kind of dejected. And this was a complete 180. People were just exhilarated to be there and you could feel the electricity. And I've been to previous conventions in 2008, 2012, 2016, and now. And this really felt like 2008 when President Barack Obama, made his first appearance on the national stage. So really, really fantastic feeling.
Why everybody is like comparing Harris to Obama is because I think people really feel that like a change is coming. But from my point of view, I don't think that if she is really a turn of page kind of candidate, or if she can do that. So tell us from your point of view, what did she do right?
What Vice President Harris has been able to do is to, bring that feeling of hope, bring that feeling of greater possibilities, because she has the record of the Biden-Harris administration, the great successes, but she's also able to make people believe that things are going to get better. And I think that is what's really important. So she has the charisma, and she has the ability to inspire people. And that's something that was missing from President Biden, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. But, I have to say that at first, I have my doubt. Because, now I think that like the anti-incumbents mood is very popular. And how do you think she can bypass that? I still couldn't understand that. Because after all, she was the VP for the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think in this case, you have to remember that the anti-incumbency bias will also impact Trump because he was president for 4 years and it was a chaotic 4 years where we had the pandemic. And, Vice President Harris, typically vice presidents, they don't generate that much attention. They kind of stay to the sidelines. So while she has had a hand in the administration's successes, she hasn't gotten as much of the spotlight, not nearly as much as Trump. And I think that is why this anti-incumbency bias is impacting Trump more than it is Harris.
David Axelrod, he is a very famous strategist who helped Obama become the senator and helped him win the 2012. He warned that much of the enthusiasm among Democrats about Harris' campaign right now is just irrational exuberance. Do you agree? Is it irrational?
I would agree that the exuberance is there. There are some polls that have her up 5 to 7 points right now, but the only poll that matters is the one on election day. And we know that previously polls have been way off, such as in 2016. But what I will say is that, look, she has been able to reactivate a donor base and a voter base that was so dejected after Biden's performance. And she's also been able to counter the very weaknesses that Biden had. Number one, his age. That has always been a huge weakness of his. And also just his presence. You're always kind of afraid, I'll say honestly, as a Democrat, that when he gets up there, you're just hoping that he would make a gaffe, right? And now she's reversed that. she's now, a generation younger than Trump, who is now the oldest presidential candidate in history. And she's a superb debater. She cut her teeth as a prosecutor in courthouses, prosecuting criminals just like Trump. So I don't think it's irrational. I think people really see in her the ability to defeat Trump. And that's why, even now, Trump is trying to get out of the debates. As we speak, he's trying to find excuses to not have to face her.
Wow. Okay. So you don't think it's irrational at all? That the winning chance is very real?
I think the winning chance is real. Look, she has to be able to cobble together the coalition that President Joe Biden put together to defeat Trump. And where she's behind right now, okay, she's ahead in most of the swing states. She's behind in Georgia. But you got to remember, Georgia has a very large African-American population, has a very large Asian population. Nevada as well is where she's behind. And those are all areas where she can definitely pick up ground. And she has not chosen Governor Shapiro as her running mate for Pennsylvania, but he is going to be on the trail for her, full-throated, supporting her. So I believe that she can carry, those firewall states as well. So I think if you put it all together, there's a very clear path.
So you both attend politics in California. So do you know her in person? If you have to choose 3 words to describe her, what are they? And then tell us a story about her.
Sure. So I have known about her in California politics for quite a while. And I know that there was always a buzz about her. She just had all the components needed. And I would say, the 3 words that I would use to describe her would be intelligent, driven, and joyful. And when you think about Kamala Harris, you think about her cross-examinations of people, from being a district attorney all the way through serving on the Senate Judiciary Committee and grilling Supreme Court justices. You think about her pursuit of justice, prosecuting criminals. But then you also think about her smile, right? I mean, when you think about Kamala Harris, you think about her smile. When you think of Trump, you think about his scowl. I mean, that is what first comes to mind. So, I think those are the words to describe her. And I remember the first, I guess, meaningful interaction I had with her was the 2012 Democratic National Convention in Charlotte. I introduced myself to her. I was excited to meet her. And then I just remember there was a handler that was with her that was trying to shoo me away and move her along because they didn't think I was, important enough to speak to her. But she actually admonished her handler and said, no, wait, I want to talk to this person. This person is a constituent and I'd like to get to know them. And I remember that. I remember that she wanted to take the time out to talk with me, even though she didn't really know who I was. And I think that speaks very highly of her own character and also her own, political ability, the ability to connect with people. The most important thing in politics, to elicit this support from other people. And she had it, because she just has that it factor, that ability, not just, the charisma, but also the true skills as a public speaker, as someone who understands the law. She just has that complete package and people can see that.
But I have to ask, so why in the past 4 years, we heard so little about her?
VP position can sometimes be like purgatory, like by title, it sounds very high, but you really only have the portfolio that's given to you by the president. And you have, in the last 4 years, a very unique situation where you not only have a president you have to defer to, but you have another former incumbent president who is trying to suck up all the attention in the room. I mean, Trump is just, for all the wrong reasons, he's really one of a kind. His ability to command the media's attention, his ability to try to control the narrative and to push these narratives that the media ends up, following along with. So he's done that. And I think for all those reasons, you haven't really heard of Harris as much. But it's also a good thing, because a vice president should never try to upstage the president. From the very beginning of Biden's presidency all the way to the end, she was behind him, never wavered. Even when people were asking President Biden to step aside, you never saw Harris try to take advantage of that opportunity and present herself as an alternative. She was loyal to the very end. And I think that's why President Biden immediately, 30 minutes after announcing he was stepping aside, he said that Kamala Harris was going to be his successor.
And then now I like to talk a little bit about race, okay? I think we can very fair to say that both Obama and Harris are trailblazer kind of candidate because of the race. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit how hard it is to be a trailblazer candidate in the United States?
So I think the days of believing that America is not ready for a person of color who's also a woman to be president, I think those days are over because we face this existential threat, which is Donald Trump, who, tried to overthrow the last election. So things are different now. We've never had someone who was like that, who was such a danger to democracy. So I think people are willing to look past whatever prejudices or hesitations that they might have, and they will elect Kamala Harris. And we also have to remember she made a superb choice in selecting Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. I mean, Tim Walz, football coach, teacher. If you look at him, he's like the neighbor that you always wish that you had. So it was a superb choice. On the other hand, what Trump did with J.D. Vance was just double down on MAGA. He did not expand his base. He's just choosing who his heir is going to be, the same person who's going to spout the same hate and divisiveness. So I think Trump made a huge mistake in choosing Vance, and Kamala Harris did a superb job in choosing Governor Walz because he's going to shore up that support, which might have been hesitant to support her in the first place.
So one of the reasons that Obama can be selected as president back then is because white people also accepted him. Mm-hmm. So do you think Harris can manage that too?
I think she can. The days of not choosing someone because of their race, like there are people who are always going to be that way. And those folks, you'll never be able to win them over. But it's really the folks, the independents in the middle that you really need to go for. Trump made his name by attacking Obama and claiming that he wasn't born in America, right? Birtherism. That is how Trump came to fame. And, now I think the perfect antidote is someone like Kamala Harris, who is Black and Asian, and who confounds Trump with her racial identity. I think that's perfect.
Okay. So a lot of journalists are complaining Harris is not doing a lot of one-on-one interviews. Also, not a lot of policy talking. Do you think at this stage, voters really care about policy talks? Do you think it's really that important?
I think that's a great question. And I think if you ask the average voter, if they can remember any specific policy proposals from the last 2 or 3 presidents they voted for, I don't think you could recall any, right? I mean, that's just the reality. I think you pull that trigger and you cast that ballot for the person that makes you feel good about the country, good about the direction that they will take you. She only started this race about 5 weeks ago. So I do not blame her for not spending time talking to reporters, having these one-on-ones, because she has a lot of ground to make up. Meanwhile, Trump has been out on the campaign field for 2 years. And the only things that you can think of in terms of policy from Trump, what has he been talking about? His crowd sizes. He's been talking about the election, which he claims was stolen, which was not. He talks about Hannibal Lecter. So these journalists that are pouncing on Kamala Harris for not subjecting themselves to interviews or not submitting policy, detailed policy, I mean, it's a double standard. Why are they not attacking Trump for his complete lack of policy, despite having these, gargantuan 90-minute long rallies, right? I mean, it's a double standard. The journalists, they want their pound of flesh. They want to be able to grill Kamala Harris. They feel like it's their right. But what she is doing is delivering her message straight to the people. So if I were Kamala Harris, I too would not subject myself to that at this moment and focus on delivering my message straight to the people. And that's why she's been so successful.
Mm-hmm. But after all, I'm still a journalist. Okay, yes. I still wonder what we should do when she really become a president. That's why we kept asking. So, what are you going to do? Right? That's your policy, right? So, but yeah, but I think that you're right. The campaign is very short, and then now she only have maybe 70 days left. But still, I like to have some ideas about what she might do in the future. So let's talk about the economy first, all right? The VP voted against participation of the CPTPP and USMCA So what's her stance on global trade? What might be her policy on allied trading partners like Taiwan?
On the subject of the economy and the CPTPP, the TPP she voted against, as well as a lot of Democrats and Republicans. Her concerns were not about an opposition to free trade, but really about the impact that that trade agreement would have on workers and their rights, as well as on the environment. We know that certain countries are going to have lower standards for their workers, lower standards in terms of protecting the environment. And through that type of exploitation, they can produce things at a much lower cost. So that is a legitimate concern. We want everyone to be on an even playing field, because in the United States, we have high standards for the environment and for the workers, and we shouldn't be penalized for having those standards. In terms of Harris's policies, she's part of the Biden-Harris administration that created one of the tightest partnerships with one of Taiwan's largest companies, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, right? TSMC. And now TSMC is building fabs in Arizona. We are tightening those bonds. And that is entirely through the Biden-Harris administration. So I think they're going to be strong on global trade and economic integration with our partners.
Mm-hmm. So can we fairly say that at this point, according to what we know, right? So it's very likely on this front, she might be continue Biden's policy on global trade. Look like
I think so.
Yeah,
I think she will continue his policies. I think she's going to take on a lot of his advisors, right? The president can't do it all. They're going to have a team. And since she's been part of the Biden-Harris administration, it's very safe to say that a lot of those who will be advising her will be the ones who are advising President Biden as well.
In Taiwan, there has been always I would say, rumor or just a way describing Harris as very Qingzhong. She's very pro-China.
Okay.
When she talk about like the global trade, she only says that we will win this competition, which is very vague. And when talk about autocracy, she mentioned Putin or Kim Jong-un, but she didn't mention Xi Jinping. Okay, so do you see any possible policy shift in terms of China?
No, I think Kamala Harris is very, very clear-eyed about the challenges that China poses. She's going to call out, Russia and North Korea. They belong in a different category. And we don't do any trade with Russia or North Korea. For all of Xi's faults, we also have China as a major trading partner. And so we have to manage that relationship. We have to acknowledge the challenges that they face, but also how we are intertwined with them economically. And so we can't be rash about what we do, which is, pretty much what, Trump did with that trade war. But I also want to say that, there were no Chinese spies or Russian operatives or North Korean commandos arrested during the January 6th insurrection. Our greatest challenge is from within. It's when people from within, incited by autocrats, wannabe autocrats like Donald Trump, try to take down our own democracy. That is our greatest challenge. And that's why I think she has focused most of her attention not on the foreign threats that face us. The biggest challenge we have right now is making sure that we do not have autocracy in the United States. We do not have someone like Trump who will take the guardrails off. Now, we were so close to losing our system of government. If it wasn't for people like Mike Pence, who agreed to certify that election, if it wasn't for secretaries of state who refused to go find fake votes in their swing states, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in today.
But what does she really think about China? I'm sure you follow her very closely on this issue too. So is there anything you can share with us? What she really think about China?
I think she understands the threat that's being posed by China in the South China Sea, where China is trying to bully our allies like the Philippines, and it's constantly making threats towards Taiwan, and it's constantly saber-rattling and encouraging North Korea with its provocations against our ally, South Korea. She understands this, and I don't think there is any kind of Qingzong or Xi in her.
Okay, so but But since she talked about like APEC, like China so little, do you think people in Taiwan should be concerned of that? Do you think we should worry about? Okay.
No, because you have to remember that. And I'll give you a few examples. The Democratic Party policy platform, right, that was just approved last week during the convention. For the first time in the Democratic platform, we include the 6 assurances. That has never happened before in a Democratic platform. The 6 assurances are mentioned. Meanwhile, in the Republican platform, Taiwan's not mentioned at all. So there should be no concern among the Taiwanese that Taiwan will be abandoned. And let's also remember that it was President Biden who stated flat out that if China attacked Taiwan, the United States would come to Taiwan's defense. No president in U.S. history has ever said that. I think he gave his advisors a heart attack when he said that, because he just tossed strategic ambiguity out the window. But he said it, and he said it more than once. He said it a few times. So he is driving that point home. And, when we talk about other Democrats and their commitment to Taiwan, Speaker Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, was the first sitting U.S. speaker to visit Taiwan. Now you might see some Republican congressmen trying to play catch up and they want to visit Taiwan. But it was a huge moment when Speaker Pelosi decided to make that move and visit Taiwan, which, caused a lot of anger in China. This is the ecosystem from which Kamala Harris has grown up in, has cut her political teeth in. This is the environment that she has worked in for the last 4 years, one that has been unapologetically pro-Taiwan. And I think that is what the Taiwanese people and Taiwanese Americans who care about Taiwan should see, that a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for the security of Taiwan, while on the other hand, Donald Trump has literally stated that Taiwan should be paying the United States protection money. He has already tried to abandon Ukraine. He wants to pull us out of NATO. He has shown he has a complete disdain for all of our international partnerships and agreements. And I doubt if he can even find Taiwan on the map, honestly.
Since you mentioned the strategic ambiguity, okay, I'd like to know, what do you think, okay? Because, she never really talked about it. But do you think Harris will be less ambiguous about this or more ambiguous about this?
I think Biden took it to a new level.
Because right? Yes, exactly. So I'd like to know, would that be more than Biden or less than Biden?
I can't say I know her well enough
to
know, how she will approach that and how she will define herself on that. But it's worth noting that when President Biden made that statement, you didn't hear any kind of attempt to walk it back from Kamala Harris, from the vice president. Secretary of State tried to smooth things over, but the vice president, you didn't hear anything from her. And very often that might be their role, to try to soften what the president has said. So I think, in her heart, definitely, she is going to have Taiwan's interests right there, the same way that President Biden has.
Oftentimes, Taiwan has been sidelined by the Clinton and Obama administration. Do you think the tide has changed? The Democrats started to realize the importance of Taiwan being a democratic country?
Yeah, I do. I personally feel like that perception is unfortunately misplaced. But historically, Americans just viewed Republicans as more hawkish, and that's why you've seen, folks like the Cubans or the Vietnamese or even Taiwanese being very pro-Republicans, because they think that those are the people who will hold the countries and dictators in their home country to account. That is their belief. But what we've seen now is a complete transformation of that idea, because you have in Trump someone who is isolationist. His America First agenda means abandoning our allies. I think you can be America First, but also honor your international agreements and also recognize that supporting our allies and having friends actually makes us stronger. That's something that Trump doesn't understand. And on the other hand, you have someone like President Biden, who has only strengthened our ties with Taiwan, has strengthened our ties with TSMC. and is making sure that the Taiwanese and the American economies are intertwined on the most essential, most important product we make right now, which is these computer chips, which power AI and are going to power the next generation of computing. He sees that importance, and Vice President Harris is going to be a continuation of that.
So you have been one of the critical advocates in the Democratic Party. So telling us how hard it is to promote issues related to Taiwan within your own party, and how did your fellow party delegates respond?
There is this impression that the Republicans are better for Taiwanese Americans. And what we wanted to do was counter that by creating Taiwanese Americans for Biden, letting folks know why Biden was good for not just us, but for the country. We are one of the official affinity groups that are recognized by the campaign. So it has not been difficult at all for us to get across our priorities. And it was, prime example, when we looked at an early draft of the Democratic Party platform. It was a shortened version. We didn't see Taiwan mentioned, and we were concerned. And so we reached out to the chair and we let her know our concerns, and it was elevated. And look, we're not going to take credit for all of it, but right now, the 6 assurances are in the Taiwan platform. We mentioned that. We said, look, these are the things you got to talk about. This is what resonates with the Taiwanese Americans. And lo and behold, for the first time in history, the 6 assurances are now in the Democratic Party platform. And if you take a look at the other side, they don't have the equivalent. They just don't have it.
So what do you think Taiwan should do to gain support from the ordinary people in the United States? What should we do here?
All this anti-China rhetoric has put Taiwan clearly in the map, and we recognize that Taiwan is the antidote to China. It's a democracy, thriving democracy. And so I think that's why there's so much support right now. And I'm glad that has happened. But Taiwan also should stand up for itself, not as an anti-China, but because Taiwan's just a great place. I'm going to Taiwan in April for spring break. I brought my kids back a couple months ago. They spent a month there, learning Chinese. And what I hope is that more people understand how great Taiwan is and actually set foot there, because once you're there, you're going to fall in love. So one of the things I would say is increasing, if Taiwan would increase investment in those delegation trips where you bring local elected officials to Taiwan, expand Love Boat. We all know about Love Boat. Now there's been a movie made about it, expanding those programs so that young professionals will have that connection to Taiwan, so that later on, when they become successful business persons or become higher elected officials, that they will become advocates for Taiwan. Take a play out of the playbook for those who support Israel, and the delegations that take place, so that people understand Israel. We can learn from all of that.
So there's one more question. So you have run for the Congress personally, so tell us the story. And would you seek a position in the Congress in the future?
I was running in a seat just south of it in Orange County, still very winnable. But the campaign made a lot of headlines. We raised a lot of money. We were one of the most successful fundraisers, had a lot of support nationwide. But because of how successful we were, it took a very dark turn where my opponent decided to basically right? Try to paint me as a communist. And
really? Okay.
It was the Red Scare McCarthyism. And she tried to paint me as a communist spy. She actually put up advertisements, photoshopped with me holding, communist literature, and actually cut an ad where she had 2 Chinese, these 2 actors acting like they were Chinese security officials, talking about how I was great for China. All of this, despite the fact that I'm Taiwanese American, I hold a top secret security clearance, I'm still in the Navy, and people called that, one of the most dishonest ads that they had ever seen. So this is all to say that, politics in the United States can be just as ugly as it is in Taiwan.
Because you talk about the attack, saying that you're a communist in Taiwan, would call that give you a label as a 中共同路人. You heard about that?
中共同路人.
同路人, yeah. So that's the label. 同路人, you guys walk the same path.
Walk the same road, yeah.
Yeah, walk the same road. Okay, so this is the last question that I often ask my guests. If there's one message you want our audience to take back, what's that message?
So this is the most important election of our lifetimes. And the person who occupies the White House is going to be the leader of the free world. So what kind of message do we want to send to the rest of the world? Would we allow a twice impeached convicted felon with 34 felony accounts who's a proven sex offender and a business fraud? Would we want that person to be president? Kamala Harris is going to be a fantastic president. She has all the qualities that are needed. And most importantly, for this audience, she's going to stand up for Taiwan. She's going to be a continuation of Biden's unprecedented support for Taiwan. And I truly believe that she will take it to new heights. She's going to be a very, very strong leader, but she can't do it alone. And so my message to all of you is to spread the word. Let all of your friends in the United States know that Kamala Harris is right, not just for Taiwan, but for the United States, because the alternative is something that we simply cannot afford. It's going to be a close election, and we need your help.
OK, thank you very much, Jay. 我觉得今天陈介飞这个访谈，我有一个很大的感触啊，就是说，民主党现在选战的主要策略还是用打川普为主，也就是说，你若受不了川普，就来投给我吧，而不是一直在讲说自己的政策这边应该要怎么做。我觉得这部分还是讲的比较少了一点。
我觉得实际上来说，当然这是可能是选举策略，在你剩100天的时候，你最好的方式就是激起民众对于这个人的恐惧。那这某种程度上是一个政治上的操作。但是如果你想要活下来，或是你想要你的政策被实行，你第一件事情要获胜。那这可能是他们在获胜之下，为了生存所需要做的事情。
可是我还是觉得美国选民是想要知道的，就是说你比如说经济政策，尤其是经济政策，你到底打算怎么做比如说他对拜登的这个通膨的问题，他如何摆脱这个包袱？
对，因为其实包含像是纽时最近纽时他们最新做了一个民调，这个 likely voters 就是这些可能去投票的人里面，有21%的人认为他们其实对贺锦丽需要有更多的认识。那这21%人里面，绝大多数又更希望他们对贺锦丽的政策要有所清楚的阐释。那我不知道这些人在听完今天的辩论之后，对贺锦丽的这个不管在外交或者经济或是内政上面的政策上面有没有更了解？我想这是他民主党当然你有一个大的主轴，但是问题是你需要说服这些关键少数选民的时候，你还是必须要端出你的政策牛耳来。
好来，那接下来呢，就是陈介飞其实讲到就是说这个台湾议题在美国推起来真的是很辛苦啦。我是说真的，其实我知道是很辛苦的。以前我们在纽约的时候，我们只是我那时候知道台湾的侨界，比如说是在中央公园办了一个，比如说台湾小吃节好了，OK， 然后中国都会来抗议，中国领事馆都会来抗议，说你不可以用台湾这2个字这样子。所以说整个我就是说，我觉得我们在国外看到的时候，是真的那个被打压情况是真的很严重，
是很压抑的，
非常的压抑。所以我其实在听陈介飞讲的时候，我知道他要推这个在民主党的体系内部要推这个台湾的议题，其实非常不容易。那你看看最近不是纽约州有传出来吗？就是州长办公室里面有一个副幕僚长叫 Linda Sun 的这一个他其中呢，因为他那么亲中，然后收了中国很多礼物
他跟他先生嘛，对不对？
他跟他先生对，然后他其中一个很重要的任务就是 block 掉这个州长跟我们台湾在纽约的这个外交官的所有的联系。所以你要知道我们台湾在外交上面有多难做，真的，他就是说你的明的暗的都来。OK， 所以我是真的觉得就是说大家要了解我们国家的困境，这样子是我们也许表面上不能说的事情，可是底下其实做了很多努力。
我想今天就是在后面，我们范姐那时候有问到，就如何获得更多美国或者一般人的支持的时候，其实他也讲到一个重点嘛，他说我们应该学习以色列，就是以色列做的方式，就是我在你很多不管是商界也好，政界也好，在很多人你在刚出社会非常初阶的时候，我们就有些民间的交流。那你不知道这些民间的人之后会不会去做官，或是他会不会因为选举选得不错而有更高的位置？那这样子。以这样的模式进行久了之后，你就会有很多的各个部会，不管是共和党也好，民主党也好的这个管道，就有很多台湾之友在这个美国里面。那我觉得这是一个我们可以参考的方向。
好。那今天我们讨论就到这边了哈。那再一次提醒大家，如果大家对于今天早上的辩论有兴趣的话，可以去看一下我们今天中午做的那个直播。好，那对于募资的话，真的赶快来参加哦，我们还有很多限定的内容会推出。好，那如果喜欢我们频道的话，应该要
按赞、订阅、分享、抖内，
谢谢大家。